There is a papyrus fragment in the British Museum, catalogued as EA 10,473, that most Egyptologists treat as routine funerary art. It is part of the Papyrus of Ani, one of the most celebrated documents ever recovered from ancient Egypt. The guided tours cover it. The standard translations summarize every panel and move on. But there is one scene in chapter 17 that the standard translations describe in a single sentence before immediately abandoning. It shows a cat sitting upright beneath a tree, holding a blade, an active cutting instrument raised and in use. Beneath that blade, coiling and bleeding, is a serpent the size of a man, carved through in a single stroke. No human figure appears. No god watches. No deceased soul is in the frame. The cat is completely alone, working with intention. The hieroglyphic caption beside the image does not say what you would expect. The word the Egyptian scribes chose, when you follow the determinative classifier attached to it, does not belong to the vocabulary of spiritual protection. It belongs to the vocabulary of installation, of deliberate positioning. The same vocabulary used in construction logs and administrative records documenting that something had been put somewhere on purpose by someone with the authority to put it there. The cat was not guarding a soul through the afterlife. The cat was assigned to a location, and the thing it was cutting through was a description of an actual enemy, one that, according to 4 separate ancient traditions, including texts the church removed from the Bible, tablets buried under Babylonian flood layers, and inscriptions sealed inside Egyptian tombs for 3,000 years, was present before we were, and remains present now. What follows is what the hieroglyphs actually say about cats, who placed them here, and what they were placed to protect us from, documented across 3 civilizations with no confirmed direct contact. If ancient forbidden knowledge and the hidden record of what was written before the church and the empires got to it is what you came here for, subscribe right now. Every week, this channel goes into what was sealed, what was removed, and what was left in the record for whoever was paying close enough attention to find it. The Papyrus of Ani dates to approximately 1250 BCE. It has been in the British Museum since 1888 and studied in exhaustive detail ever since. Egyptologists have mapped every panel, identified every deity, traced every spell through the complete Book of the Dead tradition. The translations are confident, internally consistent. Chapter 17 is where that confidence develops a problem. Every other scene in the Papyrus of Ani depicts humans or gods in human form moving through the afterlife. The soul of Ani being weighed, Osiris on his throne, Anubis attending the ritual. And then, in the middle of this funeral document, there is a full-size depiction of a cat committing a violent act against a serpent, with no human present, no deity watching, and no deceased soul anywhere in the frame. The serpent it is cutting through is not an abstract symbol. It is Apep, also written as Apophis, not a metaphor for sin or moral failure. Apep is the force that actively opposes the ordered structure of the world itself. Every night, as Ra traveled through the underworld in his solar bark, Apep would attack. Every night, the gods fought him back. The sun rising each morning was evidence that the battle had been won again. Because it could theoretically be lost, the Egyptians built an entire institutional system around this. Daily rituals, books of curses, papyri burned with his name on them. But in chapter 17, the cat does this job unassisted. Alone under the Eshed tree, the tree at the center of creation, it cuts Apep down. And the hieroglyphs describe Ra, the sun god himself, as the great cat. Not that Ra commanded a cat. That Ra took the form of a cat. That the transformation was the weapon. The answer is not in the Papyrus of Ani. It is in a limestone block sealed in a shaft tomb at Saqqara, not on public display since the 1970s, where an American epigrapher photographed its carved surface and noted that the beings depicted in one register had no equivalent in any dynastic text she had encountered in 20 years of professional work. That note exists. The photograph exists. The block exists. What does not exist is a single peer-reviewed paper dedicated to what is carved on it. The inscription on the Saqqara block does not show a funerary scene, not a coronation, not an offering ritual. It shows a construction sequence, figures placing objects, figures directing where something should go. At 4 specific points within this scene, positioned at the corners of the central element, there are cats, not in a decorative capacity. The cats in this register are oriented outward from each corner toward the exterior of the composition, not in motion, not attacking. Stationed at 4 geometric points, each one facing the direction from which something might approach. The compound hieroglyph labeling this arrangement would normally route into religious vocabulary during a standard translation. But the determinative attached to the label is the same determinative found in inventory texts and construction administrative records. The semantic category it assigns to the entire phrase is not spiritual, it is logistical. This connects directly to a modified cat hieroglyph documented by a French epigrapher working at Saqqara in the 1970s. In a register from a non-royal tomb chapel, the cat sign appears with an additional horizontal stroke attached to its base. That stroke does not appear in the standard Gardner sign list cat classification, but does appear consistently in the hieroglyphic notation for placement, for the verb meaning to set down at a designated location. The epigrapher submitted a note to the Journal of Egyptian Archaeology. It was published. It received no response in the literature. No follow-up study was initiated. The cat sign with the horizontal stroke does not mean cat in the domestic animal category. It means a cat that has been placed somewhere specific by someone with the authority to place it. When you take that reading back to the Papyrus of Ani, the caption beside the scene stops being a theological statement. The hieroglyphs are not saying Ra became a cat. They are saying Ra is the one who placed cats in the world, that their presence is a deliberate act by a specific entity with authority over the structure of that world. The Egyptians were not recording theology. They were recording a deployment. The Babylonian magical tradition is the most extensively documented spiritual protection system the ancient world produced. Tens of thousands of tablets covering every category of protective ritual and every class of entity considered a threat. But there is a class of tablet that has received far less scholarly attention than the household ritual texts: the foundation deposit tablets. Buried beneath city walls before the foundation stones were laid on top. Not placed to be read, placed to function. The text was the mechanism, not the record of a mechanism. These tablets address something different from household ritual texts. Household tablets deal with demons that might enter through a door. The foundation tablets address the same category of entity described in the Maklu tablets, the most significant anti-demonic compendium from ancient Babylon, as the Seven. The Seven are not demons produced by human sin, not fallen gods punished for rebellion. The Maklu tablets describe them as entities that preceded the current order of things. Remnants of what existed in the gap before the sky was separated from the earth. The Babylonian term for this pre-formation state is the same cosmological concept found in the opening verses of Genesis, the primordial formless dark that preceded the first act of creation. The Seven are what remained when the boundary was established. They press against that boundary. Their nature is to fill accessible space, and the interior of the formed world is, from outside it, interior space that should be reachable. The boundary holds under stable conditions. But specific conditions weaken it, and in those moments the Seven press harder, finding the points of lowest resistance at thresholds, crossroads, and geometric corners. The protective entities invoked in the Foundation tablets are described with a compound cuneiform sign that translates as the ones who watch in the dark without sleeping. Vigil watching. Continuous oriented awareness maintained by something that cannot be surprised, because its nature does not require the suspension of awareness that sleep produces. That is the biological description every Egyptian text about cats returns to. The cat does not miss things. Its eyes track in apparent rest. Its ears continue working. The Egyptians were not celebrating a pet. The Babylonians were not invoking a species. They were documenting the same function in the same animal across two civilizations with no confirmed direct communication between them. The Book of Enoch was removed from the biblical canon at the Council of Laodicea in 364 CE. The council called it dangerous. For 17 centuries, it stayed suppressed. When archaeologists found the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran in 1947, 11 separate copies of Enoch came out of those caves. More copies than were found of Deuteronomy, more than Exodus. The text the church spent centuries suppressing turned out to be one of the most preserved documents in the entire ancient Jewish tradition. Most people who know Enoch know the Watchers narrative. The 200 who descended, took human wives, produced the Nephilim, and were imprisoned before the flood. But there is a passage in the chapters following the imprisonment narrative that rarely gets the attention it deserves. Enoch describes a category of entity distinct from the Watchers, something older, sealed in a different location, under different conditions, with different instructions governing when the seal could be opened. The standard English translation, R.H., Charles's 1906 edition, renders the relevant phrase as the spirits of the earth, generic, vague. But the Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscript at Axum uses a construction that Dr. Ephraim Isaac, who translated the Ge'ez text for Oxford in 1983, noted carries a more specific meaning, not the spirits of the earth, the spirits below what was arranged, below the formed order, the things sealed under the structure of the current world rather than within it. These are not the Watchers waiting for judgment. The text describes their imprisonment as permanent. They were sealed outside the world when the world was made. The creation event itself produced the boundary that contains them. Enoch records that specific creatures were formed with a different relationship to the boundary, not humans. The text is explicit that humans are largely incapable of detecting the pre-creation entities when they approach the boundary, but certain animals were formed with sensitivity to the boundary itself. They could detect when the seal weakened. Their presence at specific locations provided deterrence that human ritual alone could not replicate. The text does not use the word cat, but the behavioral description Enoch provides matches precisely the description the Babylonian Maklu gives for the Night Watcher and the Egyptian hieroglyphic record gives for the placed guardians at the Saqqara corners. Three traditions, writing across more than 1,000 years, describe the same function assigned to the same animal, all three using the vocabulary of placement and deployment. The Babylonian tablet recovered from a sealed chamber beneath the flood layer at Ur was never officially catalogued. It was found in October 1924 during Leonard Woolley's excavations at Ur in southern Iraq. It does not appear in any published catalog from those excavations. It is not in the British Museum. It is not in the Iraq Museum. No accession number has ever been assigned to it. The only surviving translation comes from a reconstruction, completed in 2021 by Dr. Nadia Voss at the Free University of Berlin, working from photographs of rubbings made from the original tablet. She estimates approximately 70% of the original content recovered. The entire recovered text is written in past tense. Every event it describes is framed as something the author witnessed, survived, and recorded for a reader who would come after. This is not how Sumerian prophetic literature works. The Omen texts use conditional constructions. The Anzu fragment uses no conditional constructions. Its grammar is the grammar of testimony. The text describes 9 observable changes in the natural world that preceded a specific event the author calls the day the upper deep opened. The Sumerian compound Vos renders as An Abzu Bala does not appear in any other known tablet. An is sky. Abzu is the primordial deep. Bala means to invert, to open from below upward. Whatever the author witnessed came through a boundary that failed from the inside out. The 9 observable changes include water rising without rain, birds flying against the season, low-frequency vibration felt in the body before it was heard, and the sun appearing in a position inconsistent with calendar location. After these 9 signs, the boundary opened. The section describing what passed through is in the damaged 30%. What Voss has recovered contains a compound term that does not appear anywhere else in the Sumerian corpus. She translates it as those who are neither of sky nor of earth. Woolley's private journal notes that the chamber was sealed from the inside. The clay was applied from within. There was no mechanism by which the person who sealed it could have exited afterward. Someone went in, sealed themselves inside, and waited for what they knew was coming above them. The flood layer above the chamber dates to approximately 2,900 BCE. The tablet ends with a single sentence pressed deeply enough into the clay that the compression damage did not reach it. Voss marks it as the only passage in the lower section she is fully confident in. The translation reads, "You already know what this is. You have seen the signs. The only question left is what you will do in the 3 days while the boundary is open." The author sealed that chamber in 2900 BCE and left that sentence for whoever came next. We are whoever came next. Understanding what the cats were placed to do requires understanding how the ancient traditions describe the mechanism of the boundary. The Egyptian, Babylonian, and Enochic records converge on a consistent picture that has nothing to do with religion and everything to do with geometry. The boundary is not uniform. All 3 traditions agree that the membrane between the formed world and the unformed exterior does not have the same integrity at every point. There are locations where the geometry of the physical world weakens the boundary locally. These are what the Babylonian tablets call the seams, places where 2 surfaces meet at an angle, where the geometry shifts from smooth to jointed. Corners, thresholds, crossroads. The Saqqara limestone block records a placement operation in which 4 cats are positioned at the 4 corners of a central installed element. 4 corners, 4 seams, 4 points of geometric junction where the boundary would be locally thinnest. The cats do not face the center, they face outward, toward the pressure beyond it. The foundation tablets buried under the walls of Ur invoke threshold guardians at the corners of the city perimeter, not inside the city, at the boundary between organized interior space and the unorganized exterior beyond it. The cat's sensory system is calibrated for this position. It hears frequencies humans cannot. Its eyes process low-light conditions at a resolution that makes the dark functionally transparent. Its whiskers register disturbances in air pressure that has no parallel in human sensory biology. A cat at a corner where the boundary is locally thin is at exactly the location where the first signs of boundary stress would appear. The orientation shift, the focused attention directed at a point in space that appears empty, is the signal. The Council of Laodicea did not remove Enoch from the Bible because the text was poorly written. The Council's own records show the specific concern was operational information, not merely that Enoch named the Watchers. That Enoch provided locations, conditions, descriptions of how the boundary actually functions. The church did not want that information circulating as scriptural authority. The Babylonian tablet tradition ended differently. When Alexander's armies moved through Mesopotamia, the living lineage of practitioners who understood the Maklu and the foundation deposit tablets in their operational context did not survive intact. The clay survived. The understanding did not carry forward. By the 19th century, the people holding the tablets treated them as religious mythology because the interpretive context was gone. In Egypt, the protection system ended when the temple complexes closed. The last operational temple of Bastet at Bubastis went dark in the 4th century CE. With it went the daily ritual maintenance of the Apep repulsion, the cat cemeteries that maintained the guardian population, and the legal protection that had made killing a cat in Egypt a capital offense. That law was not enforced out of sentiment. It was enforced because they understood exactly what the cats were doing and what would happen to the seam coverage if the guardian population was reduced. The Babylonian tablets describe what happens when the ritual maintenance stops. The boundary has substantial integrity even without active management, but the pressure is continuous. The thin points at the seams get thinner when the active management of those points is withdrawn. There are 600 million domestic cats on Earth today. No other large carnivorous mammal is distributed across human habitation at that density across every culture and climate. The standard domestication story does not account for this. As a purely economic calculation, cats do not make that much sense. Their contribution, while real, does not explain the cross-cultural consistency or the global reach of the human-cat relationship. The texts offer a different explanation. Cats were placed here on purpose. Their distribution is not the accumulated result of individual households adopting appealing hunters. It is the continuation of a placement carried out before the oldest dynastic records in Egypt begin. The cats chose proximity to human structures because human structures produce the corners, the thresholds, the seams, where the boundary pressure is locally highest. The limestone block at Saqqara is still in basement storage at the Cairo Museum. The foundation deposit tablets from Ur are in the catalogs of the British Museum and the Iraq Museum, filed under administrative and ritual texts. The Ge'ez manuscripts at Aksum, which contain the complete Enoch text, including the passages describing the animals assigned to boundary detection, have not been available for direct examination by foreign researchers since 1974, when the Ethiopian Revolution classified church archives as national cultural property. The Papyrus of Ani is on display in the British Museum, and the scene in Chapter 17 is visible to anyone who walks past it. The hieroglyphic caption beside it uses the placement determinative rather than the spiritual protection vocabulary, but the wall panel translates it in the standard religious interpretation. The panel does not mention the determinative. It does not mention the modified cat sign with the horizontal stroke documented in the 1970s and never followed up. The information is still there, sealed in the oldest tomb complexes in Egypt, pressed into clay under the foundation stones of Babylon. Written in Aramaic in the caves at Qumran and preserved in Ge'ez in the mountains of Ethiopia. It survived the Council of Laodicea, the closure of the temple complexes, and 17 centuries of suppression. It survived because it was put in too many places to be comprehensively erased. What it says is this: cats were placed in the world by an entity with the authority to design a boundary management system. They were deployed at the geometric seams of the formed world because those seams are where the boundary is thinnest. They were distributed wherever humans build because human construction produces exactly the geometric edges where the external pressure finds its lowest points of resistance. They are still doing the job they were placed here to do. The cat sitting in the corner of a room, its attention fixed on a point in space that appears empty, is not confused. It is positioned at a seam. The hieroglyphs say the cats were placed here on purpose. They say who placed them. They say what the cats were placed to protect against. And they say the assignment was ongoing. Not a ceremony completed in the past. A maintenance operation still in effect. 4 separate ancient traditions left the same record. An Egyptian papyrus from 1250 BCE, showing a cat cutting down the enemy of the ordered world. A limestone block sealed in a Saqqara shaft tomb recording a deployment operation with cats positioned at 4 geometric corners. Babylonian foundation tablets buried under city walls, describing threshold guardians who do not sleep. And a text the church removed from the Bible in 364 CE and suppressed for 17 centuries, describing animals formed with sensitivity to the boundary between the formed world and what presses against it from outside. None of these traditions had confirmed direct contact with the others. All 4 describe the same animal, assign it the same function, describe its positioning at the same type of geometric location, and record its presence among humans as a deliberate arrangement made by an authority that understood the structure of the world at a level no human institution since has matched. The Egyptians enforced the protection of that arrangement with capital punishment. They understood that what they were maintaining was not a religious tradition but an infrastructure, and they treated its disruption as something no individual preference could override. The answer to what the cats are protecting us from is documented. It has been documented since before the first dynasty of Egypt. And the documentation is exactly where the people who carved it and wrote it left it, waiting for whoever was paying close enough attention to stop at the right panel, follow the right determinative, and read what the hieroglyphs actually say rather than what the wall card decided they mean. If this is the kind of investigation you want more of, subscribe now. Every week this channel goes into what was sealed, what was removed, and what the record says when you follow it where it leads. Share this if it changed something in how you understand the ancient world. Leave a comment telling us what you think the people who carved those hieroglyphs knew about the corners of the world that we have spent 2,000 years forgetting. The cats, remember. They are still at their positions. And the hieroglyphs are still there for anyone willing to read them the way the scribes intended.